This is TWiT.
Sarah Frier is a reporter covering social media for Bloomberg, which means Facebook and occasionally Snapchat, but these days mostly Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
So you and Max Chafkin wrote an excellent long-form piece on Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg and Facebook have said time and again that they don't want to be the arbiters of what's right and what's wrong or take a political side, but it seems to be getting harder and harder. How are you feeling that how good of a job is he doing at being neutral, and is that still his aim?
Well, Zuckerberg has had a bit of a political awakening over the last few months, and I think what we're seeing is a struggle occur between what he feels Facebook's responsibility is, which is, to be this neutral platform, and then what he feels they need to do to mitigate these threats to society that are occurring on Facebook's platform, like advertising by the Russian government to influence the U.S. election. So it's a very, we can sort of see him in public, of course, because he posts all about this on his Facebook profile, go through these internal decision-making processes about, where he feels Facebook's responsibilities should lie. And it doesn't seem like he's 100% clear.
And so I know he gets a little angry when everyone says he's running for president. Did you guys ask him if he was running for president?
Well, we already knew. I'd already asked him before. What we asked him was how, if he's not running for president, why did he put a provision in his shareholder agreement revision to allow him to take a government spot and still maintain control of Facebook? So if he really isn't interested in government, why did he ask for that? And he told us, it was kind of an interesting response, like, well, in the case that the government might need someone to come deal with a threat and I'm the only person that can do it, then I could be able to do that. Kind of like a superhero defense, right? But that's all null and void because that shareholder lawsuit has been dropped because Zuckerberg conceded. He doesn't want or he doesn't need that voting control anymore.
Yeah, explain what that happened after you published this piece, right? Explain what was going on there.
Yes. So in the 2 days after we published this piece, all sorts of things happened. Zuckerberg, first of all, went and gave this big presentation about how Facebook was going to address the Russian spending in the election and, prevent that from happening down the road. And then the next day, there was this challenge by shareholders to Zuckerberg's plan to issue a new class of shares to allow him to maintain voting control. And Zuckerberg was going to go on the stand on Tuesday to try to defend that decision. Not a great time for Zuckerberg to be on the stand defending his power over Facebook in perpetuity. And lucky for Zuckerberg, he is now rich enough because Facebook's stock has appreciated so much that he doesn't need that extra class of voting shares, that he can still fully fund his philanthropy for the next 20 years without losing majority control of Facebook, which is pretty stunning. So it was just a very shocking move because usually in these cases, the shareholders don't win. But in this case, Zuckerberg, he didn't really need the publicity of going on being interrogated in the trial. Of course, he didn't say that, but one can imagine that would be a little much right now.
Yeah, it feels like, there's that. There's the Russian involvement and the ads and Facebook having to hand over ads. There's all, everybody on the outside looking into companies like Facebook and Google and questioning whether they have too much power, not enough regulation, all this kind of stuff happening. And it feels like this has been a big year for all of that, which I'm sure, is a lot of pressure on Zuckerberg and his vision for the company. How do you think that could alter kind of his direction, his approach for Facebook as it's been prior to all of this extra scrutiny and where he's headed right now?
I think it's going to alter it quite a bit. I think the number one thing that he's attempting right now, as we discussed in our piece last week in Business Week, is he wants to build trust with the community And a lot of people right now are very skeptical about Facebook's effect on their lives, on society, on their social status. One of the big changes he's going to make is trying to just create more empathy in the world, which sounds really nebulous. But one way he's going to do it is by fixing the Groups product on Facebook. Right. Groups is an incredibly popular product. Thousands of groups that are hundreds of thousands of groups that are very meaningful to people. But Zuckerberg wants to have 1 billion meaningful groups. And he wants to give administrators more power to monitor them. And he also wants to allow people to connect with others that they maybe wouldn't have met through friends or family. He was meeting earlier this year with some recovering addicts. And those addicts told him in Dayton, Ohio, that they would have had a better time getting off the drugs if they had had friends who were sober. And that sort of sparked this curiosity in Zuckerberg's mind about, well, what if we did connect people to people they don't know and helped shape their lives? Of course, that requires a lot more intimate knowledge about what you and I need. And again, it gets us to the push and pull over, how much more power do we want to give Facebook over our lives?
Mm-hmm.
That issue of him wanting to gain trust is really interesting. I mean, it's very difficult not to make fun of the pictures of him at dinner with a normal family or wearing a NASCAR outfit or milking a cow. And you say that he has like a real issue with anxiety about authenticity is what you write. And I found that you point that out, that's what a lot of us are struggling with Facebook, like posting stuff. It's gotten to the point where it's like, oh, I just feel like I'm, creating a museum of my life now. This isn't real and there's no way to make it real. Like, is that
a good way to put it?
Is that the way that he is feeling that, because there's Facebook personal sharing is down and, do you think that his own anxiety is reflecting Facebook itself and how people in general are feeling about it now?
Right. You make a good point. Like, how is Zuckerberg's professional photography at the cattle ranch, any different from, what you have your friend take of you in your cutest, latest outfit, right? Is that any less posed? This is a really interesting thing. I didn't expect him to be as frustrated about. So he was frustrated about a story I wrote about the team that manages his Facebook page, kind of deleting spam and helping curate and helping him write these things. And he was really frustrated because he was like, well, these are my ideas and this is what I want to do. How is it not me? You're making it seem like everything is fake. And I told him, well, you're investing in creating a relationship with your users and the public. That is a strategic business decision. Even if it is, your personal decision, it's still going to reflect on Facebook. So we had this little debate. And yeah, I think that's very core to what Facebook is. They want people to use it, especially this year, as Zuckerberg thinks about the evolution of the product. They want people to think of using it for more real stuff, right? Like not just the great things that happen to you, although they want those too, but they want you to use it to, connect with people who have the same disease as you do, or who went through the same challenges raising their kids as you did. Using Facebook in a way that is deeper than the way we currently use it. Although many people are using it in that deep way too, especially on Facebook groups.
I feel like a common story or common denominator about Mark Zuckerberg over the years has been kind of his style of how he communicates, and a large part of his tour across the country, could be seen as kind of aiming to help improve his ability to communicate with everyone. You say in the piece that his communication skills aren't as strong as his competitive instincts. How can you explain that?
Well, Facebook is Zuckerberg, just such a fierce force of competition. We've seen how they have dealt with Snap, right? Just brazenly copying the features that are most popular. This is, and Zuckerberg is just one of the most adaptable leaders I've ever seen, which is also very important for competition. He is always seeking to improve himself, to become, better versed in a new thing. And that is, I mean, in terms of communication, you can tell when you're listening to him, he's very, very thoughtful, but also a little uncomfortable. And so he's thinking about his sentences carefully. He's, when you ask a question, he waits a beat before answering it, which is, smart. That was just to say that, it seems like business competition comes very naturally to him, and that this whole political side of things is maybe less natural.
So a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, Facebook's time is up. Everything's changing for them. But coincidentally, they've been around mostly during the Obama administration, and their real problems have started to happen after that was over. Do you think that is a coincidence?
Right. Well, for most of Facebook's existence, it's been the Obama administration. So they really haven't dealt with the challenge of a change in administration before. And I think they would have different challenges if it were a Hillary Clinton administration. But yeah, I mean, all of these close ties that they have built up over the last decade are not useful anymore. And so they kind of have to start from scratch, just like every business. And they have to kind of figure out how to work in this new world. From a regulatory perspective, there are now Congress people calling for them to have tighter rules on election disclosure, for advertising spending, and also from just a relationship perspective. You had Bannon, when he was at the White House, was saying that Facebook should be regulated like a public utility. I mean, those are things that were never said before. So this is definitely a change in tone from Washington, a lot more pressure on these companies than we've seen in the past. Not that the Obama administration was smooth sailing, because we had the Snowden stuff, we had net neutrality debates, but this is certainly something that tugs more at the core of what Facebook is and how it works. And these Russian ads are enabled through this self-service advertising system that Facebook really hasn't had to crack down on before in any way.
So what do you make of the Washington Post story that came out today, that Obama actually spoke to Zuckerberg, that Zuckerberg came out and said, I don't think fake news had anything to do with the election, and then Obama spoke to him right before the inauguration. Does that surprise you?
I think, these people are always in contact with each other, and Zuckerberg has told people he's had phone calls with Trump several times during his presidency. I think that it's not just Obama who was telling him, and I do think you should read, if you haven't, that Washington Post story, which is full of incredible detail. But I think a lot of people were saying to Zuckerberg, hey, even if fake news was not something that impacted the actual results of the election, we don't know that for sure, shouldn't you be a little less flippant about it? Shouldn't you be looking into it and answering the questions about it? So Zuckerberg, to his credit, took some time off in January and came up with this new vision for the future of Facebook, and actually changed the company's mission statement. So it wasn't just, we should probably deal with this fake news thing. It was like, wait, this thing that we built, focused on connecting the world, it is no longer considered a force for good everywhere. Connecting the world was this, like he says in our story, it wasn't this controversial thing. Now there are these isolationist movements, nationalist movements, extremism. What have we done, and how can we help mitigate that? So he sort of had this whole awakening about Facebook's role in society.
And as far as the changes that Facebook and Zuckerberg have made so far going into 2017, from your gut, do you think that's the right direction? Do you think those are the right changes for the issue at hand, or are they going to take it even further?
Well, I was speaking with an executive the other day who made a really interesting point in this background conversation. And he said, you know, it is going to be hard for Zuckerberg in the position he's created for himself, where he says that his goals are to make society more full of more understanding and empathy, that he wants Facebook to be a force of social good. Those are claims that he's going to have to stand up. Mm-hmm. Facebook has been such an incredible business on a tear. Just every earnings period, they beat expectations. This is a company that people haven't really thought of in terms of measured it in terms of, is this a good thing for the world? They've measured it in terms of like, wow, what an incredible business and what an incredible product. This is going to be interesting to see how he deals with the responsibility he's put on himself. If he'd just gone out there and said like, we're a business and we're not responsible for this, but we'll do what we can, maybe people will be reacting differently. But since he's going out there and saying, we want to fix things, people are going to hold him to that. Mm-hmm.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely read the Bloomberg Business Week story that Sarah wrote with Max Chafkin. It's Mark Zuckerberg's fake news problem isn't going away. Sarah Frier is a tech reporter at Bloomberg. She is Sarah Frier on Twitter. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
It was great talking with you.